big public policy question in front of Congress over the course of the next month and the country at large is, should Congress continue to bail out the states on coronavirus bailout aid? Our auditors at OpenTheBooks.com, we dug into the states, and I want to talk about three of them in this video today. The states of Illinois, California, and New York. Our findings on these states have been published at Forbes over the course of the last 6 weeks, and these investigations have received over 2 million views at Forbes. I come to you today from Illinois. It is the Super Bowl of corruption, and so let's start here with my home state. In Illinois, this state Senate President, Don Harmon, asked Congress for a $40 billion bailout. And in the HEROES Act that's been passed by the House that sits over in the Senate, Nancy Pelosi did greenlit $20 billion of aid. So the question becomes, are we throwing good money from around the country at bad Illinois fiscal policy? Let's go to Moody's. Moody's says that our long-term public pension unfunded liability is $251 billion. That's $250 billion. And that number is important because there's only 13 million people in Illinois. What that means is that annual household income now, on average, is dwarfed by the amount that the average family owes on this unfunded public pension liability. The average household income in Illinois is $64,000. And at $19,000 per man, woman, and child, the average family of four owes $76,000 on unfunded pension liabilities. As we dug into the public payrolls at every level in the state of Illinois, here's what our auditors at OpenTheBooks.com found. We found that you can be a tree trimmer in Chicago and make up to $110,000 a year. A nurse in state corrections at $277,000 a year. You could be the president of a downstate small junior college, community college, and make up to $500,000 per year. Up in Chicago, you could be a doctor at our public hospital, university hospitals, and make up to $2 million a year. There are 114 city managers, village managers in small towns around Illinois that out-earn every governor of the 50 states, and that threshold salary is $202,000. Now, it's been said that Illinois will be ready for reform when the bond market cuts us off from cheap capital. So Chicago, let's take a look at Chicago. Their bonds are one notch below investment grade. Chicago bonds are junk status. But that didn't stop Chicago last year from paying out over $500 million worth of overtime and extra pay and extra compensation on top of the already lucrative salaries. And this allowed police officers in the city to make up to $351,000, line workers at the Chicago Transit Authority to make up to $300,000. You can be an escalator mechanic at the CTA and make $200,000 a year. Well, what about the state of Illinois? The state of Illinois could be the first junk bond state. As a matter of fact, Moody's downgraded our bonds just a couple of months ago to one notch above junk bond status. Our auditors found 35,000 K-12 educators made more than $100,000 last year. However, we found there's only 22,000 of those that are actually currently working. The rest of them are retired on six-figure public pensions. 13,000 retired educators make more than $100,000 a year, and we forecast that number will rise to 20,000 highly compensated retirees just over the course of the next 3 years. Here are some examples that we found in the data. You could be a superintendent and make up to $400,000 a year. You can be a superintendent for a school district that has 99 kids, only 11 teachers, and make $200,000 a year. In our organization, last year, we investigated the most highly compensated Illinois superintendent at that time who made $407,000. And we uncovered so much public malfeasance that his school board fired him, and then he retired on a $300,000 a year pension. Right at my home elementary school district, they hired a finance chief for 200 grand. And we know that he's retired from a nearby school district on a $300,000 pension. So he's in the same position now, taking $500,000 by double dipping the educator pension systems. When will Illinois be ready for reform? Well, we know that if the federal government bails out Illinois, that will prolong the problem. Why? Because Illinois isn't, other states like California and New York, they say they're going to cut public employee pay if the feds don't bail them out. Not Illinois. They're counting on it. They're brazen. As a matter of fact, current Governor J.B. Pritzker last summer in his budget, he removed the cap on end of career salary spiking. So these pensions can still be maximized. So our conclusion for Illinois is don't throw good money from around the country after bad Illinois fiscal policy. Okay, before we start on California, I just want to take a break and tell people how we get this data. Last year, our auditors, we filed 41,500 open records requests on nearly every single substantial unit of government across the entire country. We captured 23 million public employee salary and pension records from 50,000 of the most substantial units of government in the country. This had never been done before. It was actually our third year refreshing this data. It's virtually every single public employee at every level of government, federal, state, and local across the whole country. And you can see it all right in your own zip code by coming to our website. Okay, California. Governor Newsom in California. He projects a $54 billion state budget deficit this year. The public pensions in California are underfunded to the tune of $1 trillion. The HEROES Act with Nancy Pelosi, again, that's passed the House, that sits in the Senate, would bail out California to the tune of $48 billion. But here's what we found. We found there are 340,000 public employees in California that cost taxpayers $48 billion a year. So they're asking for a bailout, nearly dollar for dollar, to bail out their highly compensated workforce. So what we found was that you can be a truck driver in San Francisco and make up to $160,000. You can be a lifeguard in Los Angeles County and make up to $365,000. You can be a nurse at the University of California Medical Systems and make up to $501,000. You could be the athletic director at UCLA, whose football teams in the last 2 years, out of 24 games, they have won 7 games. And last year, the athletic director made $1.8 million. You know, there were 114 local administrators in Illinois that out-earned every governor of the 50 states in our villages. In California, there's 1,400 city and town administrators that out-earn every governor of the 50 states. That threshold salary is actually Governor Gavin Newsom's salary of $202,000. So let's go into some of these positions. When I say the lifeguards make $365,000, people tend to doubt the number. But actually, our data shows that 44 Los Angeles lifeguards made between $200,000 last year and $365,000. And if anybody on the call wants the database, I can send you the Excel sheet where all the compensation is broken out. In San Francisco, you may remember last summer, our team literally changed the narrative on homeless populations in major cities. We mapped 141,000 instances of human waste on city streets in San Francisco. And yes, we introduced a little humor. We used brown pins. The new mayor, London Breed, won for election, promising to literally clean up the streets. She instituted a poop patrol. Our data shows that the members of the poop patrol cost taxpayers all in $184,000 per year. Let's walk through the California major systems. K through 12 education. There's 110,000 public employees where their pay exceeds $100,000. Colleges and universities, there's 65,000 where it exceeds 100 grand. There's 10,000 of them in California where it exceeds $200,000. There is 63,000 state employees where the compensation exceeds 100 grand. There's 45,000 at the city and town and village level in California where it exceeds 100 grand. You can make up to 400,000 managing a city in Santa Clara. And we reached out to comment for that city manager, and they think they've got it justified. However, I'd like to remind the city manager that a 4-star general in the United States military makes $268,000, and that's a lot more. That's a lot more importance of a position in all the rest. So in California, our team is very serious about giving oversight to California as they asked for a $48 billion bailout from all of us. In fact, in January, we sued the state comptroller, Betty Yee, to begin the process of forcing open the California state checkbook. That's the line-by-line record of payments on exactly where taxpayer money was paid to state vendors on contracts and to grant recipients. All right, let's get right to New York. Okay, so everything's bigger typically in New York. We've got Governor Andrew Cuomo. He knows how to negotiate. News reports say that he asked Congress for a $60 billion bailout. Nancy Pelosi has greenlit about $35 billion in the HEROES Act, again, that passed the House, sits in the Senate for negotiation to the state of New York. Here's what we found. We found that in the state of New York, there's 290,000 six-figure public employees at every level of government across the whole state. They cost taxpayers $35 billion a year. So again, almost a dollar-for-dollar trade. If the HEROES Act $38 billion bailout goes through, you basically just bail out the six-figure, most highly compensated employees in the state. Here's what we found in our data. You can be a plumber in New York City and make up to $300,000. You could be a police officer at the New York, New Jersey Port Authority and make up to $425,000. You can be a Long Island superintendent and make up to $550,000. And you can be a 93-year-old retired university professor and he's out on a pension of $563,000. In New York City alone, there's 110,000 six-figure public employees, and it's exploded under Mayor Bill de Blasio. They're adding headcount and they're increasing pay on an exponential basis. Just 3 years ago, our data showed there was 80,000 six-figure public employees employed in New York City. Only in New York City do the school janitors out-earn the school principals because of the union contract. You can be a school janitor and make up to $200,000, and the average pay for a New York City principal is $165,000. So let's take the 110,000 public employees in New York City that make more than 100 grand, and let's compare them to other states. Like Texas, we can only find 78,000 six-figure public employees at every level in the state of Texas. Florida, we can only find 55,000 six-figure public employees in the state of Florida. In New York City alone, 110,000. Now, Newsom and Cuomo, they have said they are going to cut the salaries and pay of public employees if the feds don't bail them out. They're being honest. They're being forthright. And it's exactly what our data shows. In these states of Illinois, New York, and California, if you throw good money from around the country at the bad fiscal policy in these states, there will be no reform. And the governors are admitting this.